Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. A big episode to end out the week here. It appears the bromance between Donald Trump and Elon Musk has finally come to an end. That's having big implications on the market, Bitcoin, and the miners. We're going to be talking about that in today's presentation, along with May production results from Soluna Holdings and Hive. A lot to talk about. Before we get into it, take a second, hit the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below what you make of this Trump-Musk saga or drama and who you think will eventually come out on top. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okie dokie, guys. Friday morning. What a fantastic end to the week we're having here, Anthony. The account is on pace for a career day. Bitcoin miners are up. We've been talking about this HPC re-rating, the decoupling of Bitcoin from the regular indices, the amount of value these companies, these miners have on their balance sheets in terms of the HODL, the infrastructure, the power assets, all of it really coming to fruition today with the miners absolutely off to the races.
Yeah, the miners are off the races today, but to be honest with you, they're only literally catching up from where they were yesterday. So, we're going to cover that in a bit more detail in a second. But yeah, managed to recover the losses from yesterday. There was a massive pullback yesterday. It sort of happened literally just as our podcast finished. We were talking about a green day for most of the miners, but it certainly ended up a red day for the miners, and not just the miners, but literally the stock markets around the world also were hit with the latest offerings that we're seeing across America.
Yeah, let's get into that news first, I guess, Anthony, the headlines here. So if we look at Bitcoin price, you can see today, as we just alluded to, very strong price action, up $3,500 per coin. Awesome for the Bitcoin miners and their revenue numbers. However, if we look at a 5-day, Anthony, you can see falling off a cliff yesterday down to 101,000. Nice to see it remained above 100 at least, but that was the exact point you're talking about. I'll let you break the big news here, but it appears the American bromance we've been following so closely may be coming to an end.
Yeah, and some people probably thought it had gone on for long enough, and there was signs in the last sort of few weeks that it was starting to get a little bit more challenge. And the fact that Elon had suggested, he'd spend enough time doing what he'd done for the Department of Government Efficiency, and I think there was only from an external employee, there's only so many days you can work inside the government. I think he'd nearly completed that amount of time. But he'd done some sterling work there. I mean, he's very much focused on delivering cost savings, and he certainly went about it in a real way. But this is more along the lines yesterday about the bill that's about to be proposed to go through, and he had some real reservations about this bill and made them quite vocal on social media. When you've got 212 million followers on X, you can, that message can go out quite quickly to a vast amount of people at one moment's notice. So he made his feelings very, very clear. And then we saw a reciprocation of that from the President of the United States. Donald Trump started to fire back again on social media and through communications from the White House. And so we started to see, the world's richest man versus the world's most powerful man having a social media effectively spat. And this is, what caused, the markets to fall. I mean, we've seen the impact before. I mean, Elon Musk, has, if he says something, things happen. And, he bought Bitcoin back in 2021 with Tesla funds and kept it on the treasury there. And the price of Bitcoin rallied in such a few days, about 20%. So he was able to impact and influence the price of Bitcoin back in 2021, basically by just saying he'd bought, a significant amount of coins. And then the following quarter, he'd sold 10% of those coins, and the Bitcoin price dropped immediately. But basically what he was doing was he was saying, look, I'm just testing how liquid this Bitcoin is. I can buy it. How quickly can I sell it? And he hasn't sold any since then. That's like over 4 years ago. And there's even rumors that Tesla may be interested in buying some more Bitcoin to increase their treasury position in Bitcoin. So, but what it shows is it shows that a man of that influence can move, not just stock markets, but also the price of Bitcoin as well at the same time. And yesterday's quarrel, which was there for everyone to see, really caused a problem for Bitcoin and everything related to Bitcoin and obviously the stock markets as well. So the stock markets, we know that President Trump has got that influence because as soon as he mentioned Canadian and Mexican tariffs back in February, the stock markets lost, literally trillions of dollars in a day. And then it was like reciprocated. We'll give them a 3-month, a stay of execution, and things started to feel okay then after that. But it's some of these initial discussions do really impact, and it makes you wonder sometimes how much foresight is being used before these communications are made as to what's going to happen. And we're not talking about people who have Bitcoin. We're talking people who have pension funds and the impacts of those. So it's the his American people, the vast majority will have been saving for pensions, the last 30, 40, 50 years in funds. And then to see, trillions of dollars get wiped off for, cursory remarks that have no, long-term meaning, it's not great. But as you rightly say, the Bitcoin price did start to rally today. We don't know if there's been any sort of reduction in any of the spat that's going on. We can talk about a few of the things that were said, just to sort of give people an understanding of how the remarks went from one to one.
Yeah, we certainly can. Good summary of the events there, Anthony. And interesting, this really all comes down to spending, the government deficit, how the money in the United States is being used. I know you were mentioning this was a very corporate tilted bill or potential bill that they're looking to pass. Elon coming out saying, kill the bill. We want to protect the middle 80% of citizens. But again, a solution that Bitcoin could potentially solve, looking at both the national debt and a way for people, as you just said, Anthony, to save for their future pension funds, Bitcoin-backed loans, all of that kind of stuff we talk about on the channel regularly. So again, one of the key points here expressed by Elon was the fact that servicing this U.S. debt now surpasses the amount of money they're spending each year on the defense budget. So definitely becoming meaningful. And then really from there, Anthony went into a spiral. So as you say, the richest man in the world, the most powerful man in the world, duking it out on Twitter for everyone to see. Elon then making references to the Epstein case, maybe some of the reasons that list has not been released yet. It could be Donald Trump is on it. Then talking about the tariffs potentially causing a recession in the second half of the year. Donald Trump firing back, stating one of the ways he can cut government spending, billions and billions of dollars, is removing Elon and Tesla's grants and subsidies, the contracts, really just spiraling from there. You can see Tesla traded down 10% on the day. Really incredible to see markets reacting so quickly in real time to just two people going back and forth here.
Yeah, we saw a lot of mining stocks also down, double digits yesterday. It was a really sort of red day once this spat started to eat its way out onto social media, into the public. And bear in mind, we just looked at some of the tweets now, and when you've got 182 million views of a tweet there by Elon Musk, that's pretty much a significant amount of people around the world who were able to see this. I also led to believe that a lot of information that was put out yesterday is in the public domain, so it's not like he was giving any secrets away. All the tweets about the Epstein files, are in the public domain there. A lot of those court cases have been going on during the Biden presidency. And so, the discussions and the Trump name was mentioned during those discussions during that period there. So it is in the public domain there. I think what Elon's probably doing is the fact that, not everybody knows everything, and he's able to sort of very quickly let everybody know what everybody needs to know. And that's the brilliance of having probably one of the largest followings on social media, and the fact that he owns a social media, he can utilize that to his strength. Equally, the bill itself, it looked like it's from a very high level, it looks like it's obviously there. It's going to affect the normal person in America, but actually corporate America may not be as hurt as much. So again, I think Elon was thinking, this is real disadvantage to the general public and not maybe to the corporations. So he had some strong reservations of that. He also has some strong reservations of the fact that I think the government wanted to keep on giving electric vehicle owners subsidies, and he felt that was like making the non-electric the electric non-Tesla cars having an advantage over him as well. So that was again, it was felt that he was not being looked at in a sort of a balanced way. And equally, then obviously the president started hitting back and talking about the subsidies that Tesla get, and maybe they should be, stopped, and so that would help with the budget. So this is a real ding dong. This was a heavyweight battle, or a super heavyweight battle, and it seemed to go 12 rounds yesterday. So we're just waiting to hear the judges and the referee scorecards, but. I think the thing is, I think what Elon said, a lot of it is in fact, it's looking at the normal person on the street, and he's trying to protect them, and he's been doing that in terms of he wants to bring this debt down. I mean, the guy's South African. He's gone in there. He's obviously very talented at what he's done. He's created $3 or $4 billion businesses. I mean, there's not many people get to create one business that is worth over $1 billion, and he's created multiple billion-dollar businesses from next to nothing. And he's an ideas person, and those ideas tend to come to fruition. So go back to the days of PayPal. Look at what he's done with Tesla. Look at what he's done with SpaceX. Look at what he's done with the Boring Company. Everything he seems to touch there is really golden. He's very, very bright. He's a workaholic. And, he's not one of these that's overly extravagant with his wealth. We've seen some of the other billionaires. They've got these, 500-meter yachts and stuff like that, and, parts in Monaco. And, he's got a $50,000 flat near his Tesla site with a single mattress or something like that. So, for someone who's twice as rich as the next richest man in the world, he's not one for showing his wealth. And really, probably, the general public like him. And there was even something that came out yesterday about maybe it's time for a third party, but this needs to be sorted out. I don't know why that the markets have recovered so quickly. I mean, it shows obviously from us the resilience of Bitcoin, but actually the stock markets equally are sort of like bounced back. To where they were sort of at the lows of yesterday, sort of like the lows of the start of yesterday. They haven't reached, the highs of yesterday yet, but we're not far away. And as we expect, this nice band that the Bitcoin, if we take yesterday as a one-off day because of what happened, we're still in that band, $107,000. And after yesterday, maybe you are ready for a next move up.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, one piece you mentioned there, Anthony, PayPal and Palantir. There's also an angle there with this bill. If you could just quickly touch on that.
Yeah, I think within the bill itself, it gives Palantir the ability to come up with. They're going to produce this effectively like credit score on American people, which is going to be really using all the latest technology to deliver this, and it'd be something really. Nothing else in the market or by other nation state will come close to this. And maybe Elon was hoping that, because of what he's doing in the AI space as well, maybe that he was hoping that he could deliver something like that. But that's gone to his effectively his adversary, Peter Thiel at Palantir. And so maybe that was another swipe at Elon. I mean, nothing can substantiate it, but it is something that's in the bill. And, maybe, again, it was raised so that people have an awareness of what's in that bill. Because at the end of the day, the normal American, or even people that are interested not from America won't be reading every document. But he was quite keen to give an overview of some of the key points that that he didn't like in that document, and it's obviously got people's attention because we can see the number of views that he's having per tweet there, massively high. It was obviously a big day yesterday, and all the talk today has been about yesterday. So you switch on any Spaces meeting today, and it might be any topic, but the part of that first topic will be about the Elon Musk versus President Trump spat yesterday. So we thought we'd at least highlight some of the things that were covered, the impact of Bitcoin, and now we're on another day and Bitcoin's back to where it was sort of at the start of yesterday, and let's hope it's there to at least stay and go up from there.
Yeah, let's hope. And very Big Brother-esque. We're starting to hear so much about AI, this social scoring, very similar or akin to the Black Mirror episodes on Netflix, Anthony, if you've ever checked those out. So with that being said, you guys, a lot going on in the political realm yesterday. Today, we're going to be focusing on some of the miner specifics. So as we just mentioned, the miners are off to the races here, Anthony. We've got our traditional visual. You can see many of the miners up double-digit percentages. We've also put together now a second table looking at the data center exposed companies. So we had that great podcast earlier in the week talking about some of these big hyperscale contracts. No, we didn't forget about Hive, Digital, Hut 8, IREN, some of these other players. But at this point, we're looking at the companies that have started to sign these large scale powered shell type of contracts. We may look at some of the other arrangements even next week on the podcast. But with that being said, the data center list, if you will, looking tremendously strong today as well.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, the miners, push back from where they were yesterday. So, good day for the likes of Riot today, good day for Hive, good day for Cypher, good day for IREN and CleanSpark. All some of those above, 10%, some of those slightly below 10%. Majority of the miners, if not all the miners, are in green at the moment. But as we know, things can change very, very quickly. But it looks now that we're sort of where we got back to where we were yesterday with the majority of miners. I look at Core Scientific's 5-day, and I think was sort of about 50 cents behind where we were yesterday. So that's got a little bit of recovery there. But we expect big things from some of the HPC deals because we like what we see with the CoreWeave deal. That's just been an amazing movement since the IPO of CoreWeave in the last few months. There we've seen that rally all the way up. That came down quite considerably yesterday. That was down $30 yesterday during the SPAC, but actually we can see now that it's bounced back up a little bit today. It's up 4% today, but it was down significantly yesterday. It took a big dive. It was $163 all the way down to $131. So $32 drop yesterday. It's recovered now. It's about 139. Still a bit way to go. But if you think 2 days ago, it was only 125. So it's just this last 2 days it has to play catch up. But if you'd have bought that stock when it IPO'd, you'd be sitting on 250% profit at the moment, and that's literally just a couple of months. So yeah, great to see some of the HPC stocks rallying there. I mean, Wolf up 16%, Applied up 14%, Hut up 13%. And I've already mentioned Hive and IREN as well. And they're at their highs at the moment for the day as well. So this is like, a couple of hours after trading started. So it's nice to see them, still advancing even a couple of hours in. Because normally what we see happen is we see a nice green start to the day. And then half an hour after trading starts, we then start to see a red. And by the time we start our podcast, we've sort of seen all the highs, and we're at the lows now of the day. So it's like, it's nice to see us do a podcast where we still got most of the stocks at their daily high. But as I say, we've still got a long way to go to go back to where we were for the highs of 2024. But it's nice to see green on the tables here, green on the Bitcoin price as well. So quickly as well. That's resilience of Bitcoin, getting back to where it was yesterday in a very quick space of time. And it's not like we've seen the handshakes done between the two adversaries we've talked about for 20 minutes.
Yeah, certainly bounced back quickly, Anthony, and so nice to see the re-rate we've talked about in this sector apparently starting to occur. We know large short percentage interest on many of these miners. At some point, that re-rate is going to occur. These shorts are going to be caught, and that's obviously what we're all waiting for in the Bitcoin mining sector, not to mention the strength, the record revenues we're seeing on the Bitcoin side of things as well for these companies. So with that being said, a few more production updates to get through before the week is done. Hive Digital Technologies, the big story here, Anthony, is that aggressive growth throughout 2025, essentially 4xing their hash rate throughout the year. Again, giving a great update here and highlighting a 58% increase in peak hash rate growth in a single month.
Yeah, no, it's been a great month, but to be honest, the shareholders have been waiting for this for a long time. It was probably the best performing stock in 2021, most of 2022. But in those days, although it was Bitcoin mining on a smaller scale, it was really a massive Ethereum miner, and earning some really, really high level profits, far greater than any of the miners running with Bitcoin mining. These margins were in the 90 to 95% range. Ethereum used hardly anywhere near the amount of electricity that Bitcoin mining, and you could really get a fantastic return of investment on the GPUs. And the likes of Hive and latterly Hut, which also moved into this space, having realized there was great margins to earn, was spending 30-40 million on GPUs, knowing that they'd get a very quick return on that. I mean, Hive were earning 7-8 million dollars a month in Ethereum mining back in 2021, which is which is amazing when you think about it. But the one thing that happened, obviously, when that Ethereum fork happened and that stopped in September 2022, they then had to go back and think, right, what's our next strategy now? We're going to grow our hash rate. And so I think shareholders have been a bit bewildered the last few years as to why their hash rate's not grown, when we've seen the likes of CleanSpark and IREN grow from smaller miners back in 2021, 2022 to absolutely enormous miners now. Those two miners are operating over 40 exahash. You've also had the likes of Riot grow over 30 exahash. Marathon was always a big miner at the start. Riot was always had big plans with big capital amounts to spend at the time, so there was no doubt those two miners were going to do well. But IREN and CleanSpark were much smaller than Hive Digital 4 or 5 years ago, and they used the at-the-market offerings to real advantage to grow very, very quickly. And it's a strategy that's paid off for them. It was a gamble, and it's paid off really well. Nobody knows how that's going to work out because shareholders don't like dilution. But when you can grow as quickly as those two have grown, it's sort of, the shareholders will allow for the fact that, the money's going into the business to grow the business quickly, not just to pay directors, a ton of wages and compensation, although that's happening as well at the moment in terms of a lot of miners. But Hive have been more, organic in terms of they haven't gone after the ATM as much as other companies have. So they've basically tried to grow organically, use profits, get great deals on miners when they can. The Buzz miner they created with Intel. So they're looking for deals. They're looking to pay the cheapest amount for mining machines. The miners, not necessarily the most efficient miner always. They'll look at the best rate of return across a section of miners. And they've been very canny that way, but in terms of hash rate, it's not been great. But when you look at where we've gone from the month of April to the month of May, 58% increase in hash rate, that takes some doing. We were only talking yesterday that the likes of IREN have to go by nearly 25% increase in the month of June to get their target of 50 by the end of the year. And we're saying they'll do that. But 25% of exahash for them is 9 exahash. The fact that Hive literally grew 3.1 exahash in total energized hash rate is a significant amount for any miner to do. And they're going to be growing a sort of a similar amount between now and the end of the year, because their target for the end of the year, if they use their options to buy the rest of the machines, they're paid up to 18 exahash. That'll be achieved by Q3. But if they go for 25, which is their year-end target, that's going to take some serious hash rate growth month on month. Bear in mind, we've got less than 7 months to go. And, they're still 14 and a half hash rate away from their target. So even in simple maths, that's at least 2 exahash a month between now and the end of the year. So we're going to see these type of updates month on month. In terms of production, it was a better production in the month of May. Obviously, they energized more hash rate. The operational hash rate went up from 6.5 to 8.5. That was a 31% increase. The amount of machines that they put in the actual buildings in Paraguay increased by 42%, and Bitcoin mine went up from 102 in the month of April to 139. That's a 36% increase. Now we know 3% of that is because there's an extra day mining for them in the likes of May, but 139 is a good amount of Bitcoin, and you think about the revenues, we're looking at about $13 million in revenues for a month. So great revenues for the likes of Hive. In terms of operational power, that's gone up to 220. So if you think about what they've got in Paraguay, they've got 100 megawatts in Paraguay, they've got 100 megawatts in Canada, and then they've got 20.4 megawatts in 3 facilities in Sweden. So increase from 142 previously, as they've now fully energized the Iguazu site in Paraguay. That takes them up to 220. Mining efficiency, again, we talk about mining efficiency, we talk about energy prices. Getting the efficiency down is a positive sign, and they've managed to get it down by 3% just in the month. So again, that's going to bring down their energy costs. Now, they have got a target to get that down closer to 17 by the end of the year, because all the machines they're bringing in now, between now and the end of the year, are going to be far more superior than the blended efficiency machines they have at the moment. So that's going to keep coming down to about 17. That'll put them in the lines of close to where IREN and certainly where CleanSpark are at the moment. And then we know that the fact that they took on Paraguay, their blended rate for all their sites now, because we're paying slightly higher rates in Sweden and Canada, is about 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is pretty good actually when you look at that, if that's the blended cost across all their sites. So expect to see quarterly updates, certainly closer to the end of the year, showing some good margins achieved. And in terms of Bitcoin mined a day now, they're mining 4.5. When they get to 25 exahash, that's going to go to 12 per day. And if the Bitcoin price is still at the same rate, you're looking at well over $1 million a day in terms of revenues. And that's just the one part of the business. Bear in mind, we haven't even mentioned Hive are also a HPC business as well, and they're already achieving $20 million of annualized revenue a year, which is sort of on a par with what IREN are delivering at the moment. And they've got a target, to get to $100 million a year in revenue. So having a mining business that will generate probably by the end of the year maybe 300 to 400 million plus another 100 million maybe of HPC. There's a $500 million of revenue coming in. We know the margins on the business margins on the Bitcoin business were going to be around about the 50% mark. Look at the market capitalization. When you're delivering that type of margin overall, if you're delivering an EBITDA maybe in the region of about $200 million, and your market capitalization is lower than $400 million, that needs some serious looking into as to what the markets is and isn't giving to this company at the moment. But as I say, great month for May. Looking forward to seeing them reach their target. It's going to be 11.5 by the end of June, so we know that's going to increase another 1.5 over 1 exahash in the next sort of three weeks to go to get that target there, and then another quick 6.5 exahash in the next quarter as they approach the 18 exahash target by the end of Q3.
Yeah, some aggressive growth targets from Hive and IREN we talked about earlier in the week as well. So the next one up, Soluna, Anthony. We talk about market cap, we talk about pipeline power, revenue potential of these companies. This is another one to keep an eye on. They're growing their hosting. They've got Bitcoin mining going on. And as you can see in some of the project updates here, continuing to sign new customers on the HPC data center side too.
Yeah, so they just put out their update. Again, they've added 476 next generation S21 plus miners, which are deployed for the Blockware team. They've got their third expansion with a hyperscale customer at Project Sophie, and 48 megawatts subscribed at Dorothy 2 for the summer of 2025 as well. So they've got some real momentum going there. I mean, this company's valued at probably just a little bit above $8 million. In terms of mining, and mining is only the small part of the business. That their hosting business is more than nearly 3 times the size of their self-mining business. In terms of mining itself, 10 Bitcoin mine, that's over $1 million in mining per month. That's an annual run rate of probably close to 13 million for the year, and that's a small part of the business. Again, we're talking about companies that are delivering revenues significantly higher than their market cap, and if you can get the margins in there to give them a reasonable EBITDA, again, this is another company that needs looking at in terms of that market cap, suggesting that the amount of progress they'll make this year and next year with all the power that's coming online in some of these sites. We'll talk a little bit more about those. So operational hash rate for self-mining, 634 petahash, which is a 5% reduction what it had in April. And again, miners will be curtailing energy when required to meet, so the domestic demand can be met more easily. And so this happens, month in, month out. It happens during the colder months when heat's more required. It happens in the hotter months when the air conditioning is required. So it's not a case of there's any real sort of like downtimes on this. It happens month by month. And to be honest with you, when you look at utilization, most of the miners for the month of May are operating around about 80%, which means they're curtailing probably about 20% of the month. And so, nowhere near getting full switch on for 24 hours a day. That's a lot of downtime. But miners are great. That's great for the miners because they'll only operate when the power price is at the right level. They're making margins there, and plus when the grid needs it, they'll switch off. They're a great balancer, and when the grid's is not being used as much, they'll be able to ramp up and overclock the mining machines. That's the great ability of managing these businesses really well. In terms of hosted, so we talked about self-mining 634. In terms of hosted, that's 3 times higher than that. That's 1.8 exahash, and that was a growth of 6%, and that will continue to grow because we know that the Dorothy 2 site's coming online, and that's a hosted site there, and so that will continue to rise there. In terms of power, 75 megawatts at the moment. We'll keep you updated as that grows as well, with more and more sites coming online. Bear in mind, Soluna said there's a pipeline, I love this word, pipeline of power of about 2.6 gigawatts. So at the moment, 75 megawatts is being used, but actually the big number is 2.6 gigawatts. So not quite as high as Gryphon's 4 gigawatts, but it's still a big number. Efficiency, 26 joules a terahash. We've not had an update on that one, but to be honest with you, they haven't really, and I don't believe they're going to be increasing their self-mining at the moment. Self-mining is capital intensive, and you've got to remember Soluna, with the valuation at the moment, found it really difficult to raise funds for themselves. They're doing things in a sort of like profit sharing arrangement. So they'll find a project, they'll find cheap power, they'll look at the plans to develop a site, they'll bring a partner in, and generally that partner has got capital to bring to the table. So Soluna will bring the plans, the idea, the business model. That partner will bring in the capital. Soluna will run the project, and there'll be a profit share. And it's worked very well for them at the moment. And we're hoping as these projects start ramping up, and there's 2 major projects being done at the same time this year. So this is going to be an interesting time for Soluna as those projects come to fruition and revenue start coming through. Whether the market starts to looking at those. I've looked at the share price the last couple of days, and to be honest with you, we used to talk about Bitcoin being volatile, in big days. I'm not talking about 1 or 2%. I'm talking when Bitcoin was up and down 3 and 4% on a daily basis. Soluna over the last couple of days has been up and down about 16%. And so, you get the feeling that something's about to happen. It jumps up 16, 20%. And just as you're about to think, well, that's interesting, I'll do some more research, it drops back down 10%. So I don't know, the volatility of this stock appears to be far more volatile than the other miners at the moment. But there is a lot of big news out there. I was very lucky. I met John Belazaire at the Bitcoin conference, and so I got to meet him face to face this first time. He's been a regular guest on the channel, and when we have him on the channel there, I mean, you want to listen in to John because he knows what he's doing there, and he can explain it in a really good way. There are certain CEOs who can just switch on the headset and away they go. They'll just happily discuss any topic from the business and in the detail that you want it at. And he can articulate everything within Soluna really, really well. He's a great communicator, and it's great to meet up with him, as I say, in Las Vegas. Although it was briefly, and we had a busy time there. But we got to meet him on day 3, and you can see a photograph of myself, John, and Jeff Morphy, who was the previous CEO of Bitfarms. So great to see Jeff back in the space a year after he left Bitfarms, and now he's ready to start looking in the industry to see what opportunities are there for him. So in terms of Soluna, there's a lot to go on there. We'll talk very briefly about some of the projects at the moment. In terms of Dorothy 2, I told you that the completion of phase one was achieved in May, and therefore now the customer developments are ongoing. Commissioning of phase two is expected to begin in the next couple of weeks, and it's on schedule to be substantially completed by August. So again, things are ramping up there. The mechanical construction of phase three, building the MDC buildings, is underway. Project Sophie, which is 25 megawatts Bitcoin hosting with a profit share, and also AI hosting. That site has returned to full capacity and completed expansion of its existing customer and achieved a record 1.05 exahash at the site itself. So things are obviously going well there. And now they've conducted testing on the new firmware and BTC miner models as well, those ones that have just arrived. So as I say, things are going really well. Project Catty, which is one of their bigger projects, 166 megawatts. That's split into two phases. Phase 183 megawatts of Bitcoin hosting. That's been, that construction bid process has been completed, and that will be finalized shortly. And there's another 83 megawatts of HPC co-location project there. So they're looking to go down the route of the likes of TeraWulf, the likes of Core Scientific, create a facility for a HPC partner to bring in their own GPUs, and Soluna will manage the site, make sure all the ancillary requirements there, like security, etc., everything that you need for a proper site there. And then again, with the right partner, a real profit share there. But when you're talking them sort of numbers for an 83 megawatts, bear in mind we talked about TeraWulf with 60 to 70 megawatts, and that's $1 billion over 10 years. Maybe Soluna can achieve, something in a similar region to them sort of figures there. It'd be interesting to see that one progress.
It certainly will be, and a good update on Soluna, Anthony. Now, a couple last housekeeping items. We talked extensively about the political updates in the United States at the start of the call. We've got a few in your neck of the woods as well. So the UK now opening up ETF exposure to the Brits. You said it was traditionally very hard to get Bitcoin exposure there. And Dennis Porter stopping in South Korea. I don't know if he had any influence on this tweet or not, but the president declaring Bitcoin a national priority. What are your thoughts on these two global updates, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, we've mentioned about the UK. The UK is way behind many of the other developed nations around the world in terms of Bitcoin. And it's a shame, really, because we were pretty much at the forefront of everything else in technology. I mean, we created the World Wide Web, we created DNA, we created all these weird and wonderful things in technology that people use. HTML. We created HTML. So, all these technological advancements from the UK, and you think Bitcoin would just be another one. Absolutely not. The government were all over it and said it was pretty much a scam from the start. Even the banks, and this is like, you think the largest investment bank in the world, BlackRock, who've been now, I mean, initially they were against it as well. Let's go back 3 years ago. Jamie Dimon was absolutely 180% from where he is today. He said it was a scam, and he's on CNBC. The video's still being shown now what his views were at that point in time. That's what the UK was really up until recent times. Literally his voice. And as I said before, I actually put a complaint against the bank that wouldn't allow me to open an account because they felt I was doing something in Bitcoin, even though it's more of an educational analysis. And I went through the whole process, and 2 days later they came back and said I didn't meet the criteria. Now, my credit score rating is the highest you can have. We have a credit score rating of up to 999 UK. Mine is 999. I am an accountant, and I sort of make sure the bills are paid on time, and I don't miss payments. So I knew my credit score was really good, and I was really dumbfounded as to why the bank wouldn't accept me. And then I started to go through and read a bit more into it. And Bitcoin, was really the reason they didn't give it me. Now, they did pay me some compensation to say sorry, but they still wouldn't let me have an account. So I had to go to the second bank on my list. Unfortunately, they were okay with it. And actually, that bank allowed me to buy Bitcoin. So in fact, it was a sort of a win-win in the end. I was able to open an account, and with a bank that is a little bit more forward thinking, which allows me to, to use, some of the proceeds in the account to buy Bitcoin. And so that was really, really useful. But it just shows you, in the UK, this bank I went to was one of the biggest online banks in the UK, and actually the highest rated online bank. So it was really, really disheartening to find that the UK was so far behind. And then you start going more and more into it and find, why are we so far behind? I think we're starting to improve, but we're just behind the US. In this, it's a shame really, because literally anything else we sort of like lead the way in many technologies, but this one we were sort of not even on the starting line. Yeah, and great to see the Bitcoin conference reach out to South Korea as well. That was on the 4th to the 6th of June. And obviously our good friend Dennis Porter sending the message over there. So it's great to see them come on board there. That's more and more positive news, positive adoption, seeing these leaders come out there, another leader to list, another leader from a big developed country. South Korea is a big, big name, around the world, and that will send a few shots to other countries who may be thinking on the borderline whether they should be doing it or not. I think we'll see more and more of this.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, Anthony. So in closing here, you guys, the Bitcoin miners continuing to rally. We are starting to see some movement on the Miner Madness leaderboard as well.
Yeah, great end to the week for leaderboard there. And as you can see, the top three, as we mentioned before, all holding Gryphon at the moment. And actually, if you look at if you go into our newsletter, which has been released today, so if you go onto the Power Mining Analyst website under news, and sign up to the newsletter, we always do a fun-packed week of the news and all the news stories in there. This week we've done an actual focus on Hive Digital, and obviously they're achieving that magic number, the 10 exahash they got through earlier in the month there. So there's a focus on Hive Digital. There's lots of other news in there, all the links to our podcasts. There's my articles in there that I've written for Compass Mining over the past week. And also there's an update on the best performing stocks and the ones that didn't perform as well. And actually Gryphon was in the bottom table. But because it's had such a great run, even though it dropped, I think 12 or 13% in the last week, it's still massively ahead. And unless that stock really drops probably 50% or more, we're going to see the top three remain probably where they are in terms of the competition. But as I said on previous days, it looks like everyone's in positive territory. So a good 3 months of this competition. Start thinking what you're going to pick for the next competition, which will start very early in the month of July and run from July through to the end of September. Because, again, we're going through another 3 month period. And, you might think actually some stocks have performed really well and there's some stocks maybe have an opportunity to perform better in the next 3 months. So let's see how you think the market's going to play, how stock's going to play. Start thinking about your entries. But, well done to everyone that entered this time. You're all in positive territory. If you invested in those stocks during that 3 month period, well done. You've achieved a nice return, especially if you're in the top three. 337% in just over 2 months. I take that every day of the week and twice on a Sunday.
You certainly would. So with that being said, enjoy the weekend and your Sunday. We'll see you back here on Monday for more updates. We've got Bit Digital, Sam Tabar booked in Thursday next week. Looking forward to that one as well. Take care, you guys.